when last we talked on Dragon Ball Z. What's up, everybody? Today, we are going to talk about how to reverse out of your diet. Last episode, we talked about some indicators that you would want to track, mainly sleep, satiety, strength, sickness, socializing. One other one that I don't recall off the top of my head, but you tracked all those indicators. You now know you need to come out of your diet. So how do we do that? We're going to talk about that right now. So let's get to the episode. Okay, so first of all, what are we transitioning to? So I think whenever we are bodybuilding, we think about two distinct periods, cutting and bulking, but we also forget about this beautiful period in the middle called maintenance. So what is a maintenance period? Maintenance is the number of calories you need to maintain your current level of muscularity and or leanness and weight. Now, when entering into this maintenance period, yes, your goal is to sort of maintain your gains or the amount of body fat that you've cut off, but as a part of the recovery, you may put on a few pounds. Some of this might be glycogen, so you're going to be storing a bit more water, but eventually you're hoping to level off and not go right into a bulking phase. Now, there are multiple ways that you could get into a maintenance phase, which will we go over. There are some that we won't go over, like using online calculators to estimate your BMR, which can be useful, but I think we have two pieces of information that is going to help us a lot more than online estimated calculators. We have where you began your dieting, so let's just say 3,000 calories, and where you ended your dieting, let's just estimate 2,000 calories. So those are two bits of information that we have that are going to be a bit more accurate than online calculators because we already have those numbers. So we're going to start there. Again, in this reverse or recovery, as 3DMJ has coined the term recovery dieting approach, the point is to maintain some level of leanness and your current level of muscularity and possibly gain back some strength. However, as a part of the recovery process, you might put on a little bit of weight. So that's just something to keep tucked in the back of your mind because you will, it is not a sin to gain a couple of pounds. We just want to eventually stabilize and maintain some level of leanness that is less than when we started. So here are three ways that we could go about sort of reverse dieting. Number one, I'm going to call this unrestricted. So you could say you've cut for 12 to 16 weeks. You started at 3,000 calories, you ended at 2,000, 1,500, whatever, wherever you ended. You're happy with your level of leanness and the way you look, and you just return to an unrestricted style of eating. So, you're still good. You eat a lot of protein, multiple meals a day, but you go out to dinners, you have snacks, you do whatever it is that you would do in a time when you are not tracking your calories. And there are some, well, we'll just call it pros and cons to this. So definite pros. You get back to a somewhat normal eating schedule. You might, eat a little bit more in the mornings. You might have a bigger lunch. You might have a smaller dinner. You might have snacks here or there. So definitely a pro. Just sort of back to a more intuitive style of eating. Additionally, you're not going to be worried about your schedule of eating. So you're not going to be worried about, getting something in, sort of that peri-workout nutrition window. You're not going to be worried about getting something in 2 hours before you hit the gym, maybe even a sort of an intra-workout shake, carbohydrates, things if your workouts were, a couple hours long or something like that. And then something, an hour to 2 hours post. You're going to be a little bit less worried about peri-workout nutrition just because your calories are increased. So don't really have to worry about that. So unrestricted, a lot more calories. Great. Again, another pro, one of the S's that we learned about in the last episode, socializing. You're going to be probably much more apt to go out and socialize and have dinner with your friends, which is I don't want to underscore. I mean, that's pretty big. We are the social animal. So socializing is a big deal. However, there are some trade-offs. Depending on where you ended your diet, like I said, let's say we started at 3,000 calories, but maybe we ended around 12 to 1,500 calories, and we immediately jump back to an unrestricted style of eating. You might be in for some excessive weight gain, and depending on how high your hunger signals got whenever you were dieting, you might be in for some binge eating you might be in for some binge eating. The second way we could go about this is what we'll call the incremental approach, and that is where you again, start at 3,000, end at 2,000, and you just gradually go up unnecessarily 25 to 50 calories a week. So as you can tell, by the way I said that, I'm not a fan of this way either, but let's talk about the pros. So what are the pros of this method? Well, you're not going to gain excessive body fat. I don't know how one could, only adding 25 to 50 calories a week. So it's I mean, it's very gradual. And in some cases, if you're well, I can't honestly think of any more pros than that, but it is very gradual, and I suppose you would eventually get back to a calorie range. But as you can tell, the cons or sort of the trade offs on this is it's very tedious and it's going to take too long. And if you have dug yourself into a deep enough hole calorie wise, you may need to put on a little bit more body fat so that you can begin sleeping, so that you can begin not feeling as hungry, because that's what we're trying to recover from those things more so than anything. So I think the main con of this is that you won't recover as quickly as you possibly could. And then this could also then lead to some binge eating behaviors or things like that. So what am I recommending here? I'm going to call it the halfway method or the sort of recovery method, and that is where you sort of split the difference. So we're going to go back to our example of 3,000 calories and 2,000 calories, where we started, where we ended. We're going to take the difference, and so that is going to be 1,000 calories, and then we are going to chop that bad boy in half, so 500 calories. We are then going to take that 500 calories and add it back in to where we ended our diet at, so 2,500. That leaves us with 2,500 brand new calories for us to begin dieting on week to week. What are the pros of this method? Well, number one, it's not completely unrestricted, so you don't go from 2,000 to who knows, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 calories within a couple of days. You're probably going to end up keeping a lot of the whole foods that you had eaten and adopted during this time of dieting, so that's going to be another benefit there. It's also not going to be too tedious and too slow. You're not looking at 50 to 100 calories a week, or 25 to 50. Let's say if you only added in 50 calories a week, it would take you 10 weeks to get to this point, which is absolutely ridiculous. So it's a little bit faster. So not completely unrestricted and not too slow and tedious. And then also another pro, you can get back to sort of feeling normal. This additional shift in calories might help you start sleeping a little bit better. Your energy levels are probably going to go up. Your workouts are probably going to be better. So lots of pros in this respect. The only cons that I can really think of is it's still, somewhat of a gradual approach. Excuse me, it's a gradual approach. Reproach. Wow. So it's still somewhat of a gradual approach, and it's going to require you to use some sort of mental muscle and still keep your structure. So if you start conceptualizing your diets as I'm going to diet for 12 to 16 weeks, maybe tack on another, 8 to 12 weeks on the back of that. So you extend mentally this model you have of dieting from not just a cutting phase, but a recovery phase. So it is going to be a bit more tedious than returning to unrestricted, but you will keep a lot more of your gains as opposed to jumping into some unrestricted eating. Okay, so we've decided to do this halfway method. How do we monitor progress and make sure that we are not gaining too fast or maybe even we continue to lose for a little bit, which happened to me. So there are a few numbers that I monitor, beginning with weight, body weight. You are still going to be weighing yourself daily, and you are going to want to take your average weight at the end of the week and see and compare that to your average weight at which you ended your diet. Now, for me, whenever I came back up, I started low 3,300 calories, got all the way down to 2,250, added back in that difference around 600-ish or so calories, and I actually dropped weight the next week, which was a fantastic thing to happen, because it meant that I could add an additional 100 calories the following week. So that was fantastic. And you can do that by making sure that you track your weight week to week. An average is going to be better than any one individual time point of tracking your weight, because your weight may fluctuate from day to day. I remember I was ranging from 168 and then 171 and then back down to 169 and 171. Maybe one day it was 172, but the average weight across the week was 169.7 or something like that. So you're going to want to take your average. Once you've taken your average from week one, if you haven't gained any weight or if you've lost some weight, then you look to add in another 100 to 150 calories. Other things you could look to modify here, if you were averaging something like 10,000 steps a week, you could maybe only add in 100 calories, but look to scale back your steps from 10,000 to 8,000. That would be something else that you could do to sort of modify your energy input and expenditure, and that would also aid in recovery. And then some tertiary things that you're going to want to monitor is, okay, after a week of this, was I beginning to sleep better? Was I feeling better in the gym? Was my strength going back up? Am I feeling a little less irritable? Because, it's all of those things sort of combined, sort of this biopsychosocial model of weightlifting and fitness. You want to monitor things within all the areas, but some of the more important indicators are going to be sort of the biological ones, your weight, how you were sleeping, what's your strength looking like, and then maybe some of these social and emotional things are secondary, but they're good to keep tabs on. Now, depending on where you begin to gain weight, you have a couple different options. Option number one, you can stop right there and you can choose to maintain your calories. So if I would have sort of paused at like 2,800 calories and maybe started gaining a little bit of weight, I could pause for a week and then see what my weight does for the next week. I don't add in any calories. I don't take away any steps. Let's say I'm at 8,000 steps, 2,800 calories. If it looked like on average I had gained a little bit more than I had wanted, I pause right there, see what my weight does the next week. That next week rolls around. If I don't gain any weight, I can try and scale back a step some, unless, just my regular physical activity gets me that pretty easily. Or I could just add in the next, sort of 100 calories and then see what I do from there. If I maintain, awesome, fantastic, keep it going. If I were to gain weight, I then have to assess how I feel about being at 2,800 calories. If there is some specific purpose for you to be at 2,800 calories, like if you're in some prep positioning phase, like for me, I'm positioning, so I want to maintain my current body weight at around 169 to 170 because I'll be competing in, 4 to 6 months. So this is sort of where I am going to be maintaining. If there is that purpose in mind, then maybe you stop at 2,800 or 2,900. However, if you aren't recovering sleep-wise, if your strength isn't recovering, and you just aren't feeling like yourself, you're irritable, you can't concentrate, and you're 2,800 calories, and you see that your weight's going to go up if you increase any more, you have to decide then, is it worth it to stay at this calorie set point and at this sort of body fat set point when I still feel this way? At that point, it is on you to decide, like, okay, maybe I need to sacrifice a little bit of the conditioning, a little bit of the leanness, because I am just not in a state to function as a human. And that's sort of the real tipping point in all of this. Competition's one thing, but if you're not functioning as a human, why do this? So make sure whatever calorie sort of set point you end at, you not only sort of have this sort of grit and grind it out mentality about it, but you can also live with it. Alrighty, folks, that is it for today's episode. So hopefully I gave you a good idea of how to reverse out of your diet. Remember, as in the previous episode, some important indicators. You're going to want to make sure that your sleep is recovering, your strength is recovering, your satiety, your hunger and fullness signals are recovering, and that you don't put on excessive weight or go so slow in terms of your recovery dieting that it's just overly tedious. I hope this episode helped, and if I missed anything, please drop me a comment down below, and I would love to answer whatever questions you have about sort of reverse dieting or some of the things that we look at whenever we are trying to reverse or recovery diet. Also, check out 3DMJ, got a lot of great information on their site, and if you haven't checked out Mass, that is a great monthly review of tons of different research, bodybuilding related, nutrition related, sport performance related. Definitely a good resource to have if you are scientifically minded. With all that said, Happy New Year, everybody, and I will see you in the next episode.